Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Film Seizure. I am Jason Oliver, and I am joined by my two co-hosts, partners in crime, Jeff Arbuckle. Hey.
Hello, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. And I'm also joined by Chuck Moore. What's up, Chuck?
What's up, man? Good to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, as always. We are kicking off a month of kind of a theme. Jeff has already stated he's sent off the marketing materials to our to our crack team of graphic artists. Read Jeff, and we're calling this month Back to School Month, and this is week 1. And the movie that we're covering is 1971, right?
Yeah,
71.
That is correct.
The Last Picture Show, which actually takes place in, I believe, 1952 or
51 to 52. It spans like a year and a half almost.
And that's going to be kind of a common theme this month until we get into the last two movies, where we're dealing with a movie that takes place a couple decades or at least a decade away from the time period in which it's set. So the first one is The Last Picture Show, which is arguably Peter Bogdanovich's most famous film, probably his most well-regarded. It came very early in his career. It was the third movie he ever made. His debut was a very good film called Targets, which I believe was Boris Karloff's last film.
Yeah, this was he did two movies for Roger Corman.
Mm-hmm.
One he had a pseudonym on, and then Targets.
Yes.
So this is his first post Corman film.
Yes, and he made this film for BBS Productions. This will be the third time that we've covered a BBS Productions film. The two previous films were Head and Five Easy Pieces.
Yeah, this is also coincidentally, since it's our third BBS film, just like it's Bogdanovich's third film. This is our first non why can't I think of the director's name?
Bob Rafelson.
Bob Rafelson. Yeah, for
Great.
some reason, right? I kept wanting to say Schneider, but that's Bert Schneider. He was the other half of the Monkees.
Right.
So,
Yes.
But yeah,
Rafelson was a producer on this, being it was a BBS production, and it is one of the earliest, best examples of the new Hollywood movement. So we're going to talk all about it. I think we've already probably talked quite a bit about BBS Productions in general in 2 of our previous episodes, so I don't know that we need to get too into the weeds where that is concerned. But definitely Bogdanovich is an interesting character, and his wife Polly Platt, his wife at the time Polly Platt, had quite an interesting career as well. And I think probably notably, this might be the maybe not the most famous BBS production. That's probably Easy Rider, but I think it is the most critically acclaimed of the BBS productions. It was
which is interesting because I mean, Easy Rider and Five Easy Pieces are top tier stuff. For
sure. I mean, they were knocking out some pretty heavy stuff there in the late 60s, early 70s.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm going to go ahead and spoil it here. We're 3 for 3 on BBS here.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
I mean, I think, I don't know that we'll cover the rest of them. Maybe Easy Rider at some point. But these are the 3 that we've covered are the 3 I like the best that I've seen, I should say. There's a couple I haven't seen. Easy Rider is a movie that didn't really speak to me the first time I saw it, that I would like to revisit. But we're talking about The Last Picture Show. Was this a first time watch for you, Chuck?
As far as I can recall, absolutely. I think I've seen bits and pieces of it, or maybe something like on Turner back in the day, but never like the full shebang, I should say.
Yes.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah, it's good. I will go so far as to say, of all the movies that we're watching this month, this is the best one. It's not necessarily the one I would put in and watch the most frequently, but this is the one I feel has the most to say and is the most poignant of the 5.
I'll agree with that too. However, we've got a few weeks to get to my favorite.
Yes,
so,
I know what your favorite is, and
yeah.
I honestly I don't think we can argue about the merits of any of these five movies. They're all very important and fun and good in their own ways.
Yeah, absolutely, and also, I mean, they're going to hit people in different ways too.
Most certainly.
While this movie takes place in the early 50s, there is a timelessness to the concept that's happening here. Mm-hmm. The next movie, I mean, that was when my dad was a senior in high school, so I suspect he'll have a different or have a deeper appreciation than even we do. And while my favorite is one that we're all too young for, it's the one that has permeated my life the absolute most. And it also reminds me most of my high school because of the different characters that are in it. But that's, I think that obviously there are going to be sentimental favorites here. But I think across the board, I mean, these first 2 weeks are Academy Award darlings. And
yes. Sure.
And obviously there's something to be said about that.
And I think we should also mention from the top that The Last Picture Show is based on a novel by the author Larry McMurtry, who I've never read, but I'm familiar with the adaptations of his work, like Terms of Endearment and Brokeback Mountain. He is someone who sort of specialized in the disaffection of maybe marginalized people in Texas, which I think is a very interesting kind of theme and topic for someone to explore. And this movie, I think, does that very well. It is in very many ways like an anti-Texas movie, but not in a way that is conflictive, right? It's not trying to trash Texas. It's trying to put forth another possibility that, the bravado that you typically see associated with Texas is maybe a little bit of a thin shell, and that underneath that there's a lot of really painful sorrow, ennui, disaffection that is at play. And this movie and I assume the novel really wants to examine that in depth.
So you're saying there's a good country song in there?
For sure, it is like the country song for Texas. Yep.
Well, I would argue that the Hank Williams song that they used to close the film, Why Don't You Love Me Like You Used To? Yep. I would believe that is the perfect theme song for this movie.
I couldn't agree more, and that's a great thing to bring up, Chuck, because you're right. It is sort of the movie version of a Texas country song. Yep.
And like the good country, not like this, not like the bullshit today.
Right, not like fucking Toby Keith crap.
Right. No, this is like Hank Williams and
right. Yep. 100 P. So, who wants to kick us off with what we watched here?
Jeff, go ahead.
Oh, me? Okay. Well, so basically this movie starts in the I would say the very late fall of 1951, and we get introduced to 3 youngsters, 2 of which are high schoolers, which are Sonny Crawford, which is Timothy Bottoms, and Dwayne Jackson, which is Jeff Bridges. This is probably not Jeff Bridges' first movie by a mile, but it was probably the one that was his really kind of breakout, maybe.
I would say so. Well, it's pretty darn close to his first picture. So
he was on TV in the late 50s with Lloyd and Bo, but Bo had been in movies before this. So like I would say that, he probably, this is probably about as close to a breakout that would basically make the rest of his career.
Yes.
So anyway, Dwayne Jackson and Sonny Crawford are also joined by a kid who is he's mentally challenged. His name is Billy. Now, whether or not he's actually as much mentally challenged as they say he is versus just not able to speak, it's really kind of hard to tell. I mean, it could be that he was not able to speak and therefore he was kind of held back by that because he doesn't. He's not.
To me, it kind of feels like a nonverbal autism. You know,
maybe that's what it is. Because, like, honestly, he's well functioning. Mm-hmm. But anyway, he's played by Sam Bottoms, who's Timothy Bottoms' younger brother, who just kind of accidentally got cast. But they are. It's basically the day after a thrashing on the football field because everybody is giving Sonny and Dwayne shit for what they don't do on the field.
And that's tackling.
Tackling is important because that keeps the other team from scoring, as we find out. But they are going to basically the center of this town kind of evolves around these three businesses that are all owned by the same guy, which is Ben Johnson's Sam the Lion. And the kids they kind of hit each one at different intervals during the day. They go to during the afternoon, they're at Sam's pool hall. And then when they get hungry, they go next door to the diner where Eileen Brennan is basically the only person we ever see there. She's the waitress and the cook. And then there's the picture show, which is the other part of this kind of strip of buildings.
I would like to mention that since we're bringing up Eileen Brennan by name, she has been in a lot of things, but the thing that I've seen her in the most is Clue. We talked about that. I think we talked about that when we did The Sting, because she's in that too.
Yeah.
She worked with Bogdanovich a few times. She'd pretty much swap out Jeff Bridges for Burt Reynolds, and you've got at long last love. But anyway, because even the teacher John Hillerman is in that. Yep. But anyway, so so basically it's this kind of dying town.
Well, that was a movie that kind of almost crashed Bogdanovich's career, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because he and Sybil Shepherd both like went pissy on the critics for it, and it kind of. And
I think Burt Reynolds did it. I think Burt Reynolds trashed it too.
Oh yeah, later he's like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. But anyway, so they basically live in this teeny tiny northern Texas town called what?
I want to say Abilene, but it's not.
No, that's a dude's name.
It's Abilene.
Thank you.
So anyway, they and it's just it's a town that is like the real town actually is or I'm sorry, it was called Anarene, not Abilene. But that's a real ghost town in Texas that sprung up a little over 100 years ago when the railroad went through it, and then it was basically dead by the 60s. There was a post office that got closed, and shortly after the rest of the town closed, and it's a real place you can go to now that doesn't have anybody in it.
That's interesting. It was probably an oil town, right? I think.
So
presented in the movie. Yeah.
Right. So the real Anarene was built off the railroad. About 25 years later, oil was found just outside the town. It attracted business, and it basically dried up 20 more years later. So, and
when
it's
the oil
also
goes, so does the town.
Pretty much. So the other thing about that is that it's also kind of based on, I think it's McMurtry's hometown of Archer City was kind of where it was shot, and so it's basically McMurtry was kind of using Anarene as as the stand-in for his own town. But basically, it's I don't even think there's a stop sign in the town. It's like, this is such a small town. It's a no horse town.
Well, spoiler alert.
Well, yeah, yeah, they probably should use one. Yeah, but yeah. So so like basically we follow these kids through this following morning from a football thrashing, where everybody in town is telling them what they need to know how to do better, and we find out that Sam the Lion lost a bet to somebody else over.
So what do you say? So much for betting on the home team or something like that?
Yeah, the hometown team.
Right. Well, and the guy even like trashes the town. It's like, oh, you could use a better town. So yeah, so that's basically where we kind of get started, and we know that both that both Sonny and Dwayne have girlfriends. Sonny is kind of disaffected by his relationship. He doesn't really like his girlfriend. He certainly doesn't think she's nearly as pretty as Dwayne's girlfriend.
Neither do I.
Which is fair. Yeah. So yeah, basically, Dwayne's girlfriend is JC Farrow, who is Sybil Shepherd in pretty much her first movie too, I think.
Yeah.
And there's a million things you can say about JC because
most of them not good.
Exactly.
No. She's
the best
kind of the template for some of the mean girls we meet in the later movies here.
Kind of. What's interesting about her is that she is kind of affected by the same things that Dwayne and Sonny are, which are, I don't really want to stick around here all my life, but their ways of going about all of these things are different. And JC is definitely presented in the early scenes slightly different until we attend class one day and we realize, oh, okay, I get a little bit more about what's going on with her.
She's a little bit manipulated by her mother.
100%.
Oh, sure.
Who is played by Ellen Burstyn, who is unbelievably beautiful in this movie as well. She is gorgeous. And they make kind of like that really interesting mother-daughter conflict, yet united front in this movie. It's a complicated relationship, and Ellen Burstyn's character is exceedingly interesting. We'll get into her later. She
probably, it's kind of. Yeah, we'll get there when we get there, but that's the best way to. Yeah, you said it exactly right. So like in the early scenes, it's like, oh, JC is, her and Dwayne are very much in love, and they're, it's very. They are very touchy-feely with one another in the first scene that you see them together. They are, they're driving home from school one day, and they're all joking about like the school song and all of that, and how kind of full of shit that sort of stuff really is in the long.
Funny thing about the school song, Susan picked up on this. That school song is to the same tune as the camp song from Dirty Dancing.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I never would have picked up on that, but that's very
interesting. I never would either, but Susan was like, that's the same tune as Dirty Dancing song. Like, oh, okay.
Maybe they were inspired there too.
Maybe.
But what we discover is like the cracks start to show on JC a little bit, because we see them in class and she is completely and totally disconnected from everyone else.
And self-absorbed.
She can't stop looking at herself in the mirror, which honestly, if I looked like Sybil Shepherd in 1971, I kind of get it.
I would do nothing but touch myself. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's staying in. Yikes. All right.
She is an absolute beauty. It's staggering, honestly, how gorgeous she is in this movie. It's like her character is kind of interesting, but her beauty is somehow transcendent. I can understand, I guess, why Peter Bogdanovich, I don't approve, but I can understand why he would leave his wife while he's making this movie for Sybil Shepherd.
What's interesting about Sybil Shepherd is she looks like the girl next door, but she's also like glamorously beautiful. I don't know how to explain it. She's got both qualities almost. Right.
She is capable of being what you think she wants to be.
Right.
I think what it is that there is a innocence isn't quite the right word, even though she is that. There's she's not really all that wise to the world. So that, I think, gives her a quality that is a little bit more approachable, if that makes sense.
But I mean, she is also kind of like, she knows that everybody thinks she's the prettiest girl at school.
She does.
She's also decided herself that she's going to stay with Dwayne the rest of her life. Like, she's made that decision personally, and eventually kind of gets talked out of it.
And it's not until her mother gets into her head that she starts to think about things. And honestly, her mother, some of her advice, while a bit extreme, isn't necessarily wrong.
If the way that it's said is changed, the context is right.
Yeah.
You just have to change the way that she says it. And it's like, that's good advice.
Yeah, she set her off in the wrong direction with her advice, inadvertently, I think, in a way.
Well, she gave her the wrong goals. She gave her the wrong goals in the sense that she wants her to find a man, and that's the end all be all. But a man better than Dwayne, and a man with money. And in doing that, it's kind of ironic because she herself found a man with money, and she's completely unhappy with her marriage. Right?
Well, he didn't have money at the time. She talked him into it, is what she says.
Right. Well, yeah. But she's still unhappy. She has everything that she thought she wanted, and she's still unhappy.
Right.
But I love what she says. Again, it's a perfect example of, I can see the message is good, but but it's so crass the way you teach it. And she says to him, if you slept with him, meaning Dwayne, you might discover there's nothing magic about him. And that's probably true. Right? But she's also kind of like saying you should experience boys, and get it out of your system so you know what you're looking for when the time is right, which is also pretty good advice.
Right.
Well, it's interesting. We'll get to more advice in this movie that's pertinent, but all of the adults with great intention give pretty bad advice in this movie.
Yeah.
Not only Ellen Burstyn's character, but later on, and what I think, Jason, you and I said was our favorite scene, there's some pretty bad kind of advice given there inadvertently. But we'll get there later.
There's an underlying theme here that I love in coming of age movies, and it's that coming of age is a lifelong process, right? Mm-hmm. And that is very apparent in this film.
Yes, absolutely, because like, I think coming of age is coming of whatever age you are right now, so it's like next year you got to do some more work, and
you're always arriving.
Arriving.
You're never there.
Right. And that's kind of part, I mean, to be honest with you, that speaks to the town too.
Yeah.
The town never grows. It never gets bigger. It never changes. Therefore it's going to die.
People are stuck. There's like this failure to launch, right? They're trapped in this sort of suspended life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One other thing I did want to mention, because it will be important later, when Sonny first drives up to the pool hall, which is Sam the Lion's business, is it Billy? Is that what his name is? Billy, the simple.
Yes.
They call him a simple
Yes.
kid in this movie. I don't know if I'm allowed to use that term now. I'm just trying to use movie terminology.
I think as far as terms go, simple is one of the better ones. Yes.
Okay, good. Well, he's sweeping.
It's certainly not the worst.
Right. No. he's out in the road cleaning the street. Right. He's like a street sweeper. And Billy, you can tell every day, picks him up, takes him off the street, and brings him to the pool hall. Like, gets him out of the road, basically, every single day, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
That's important to note, I think.
I agree.
It is. While it does seem as though
it's good filmmaking.
It's great.
It is. Because while you seem to think that technically that is what Billy's technical job is, it feels as though Sam and everybody else in town just it's like
he goes and sweeps everywhere. He doesn't have a job,
right?
He just carries a broom around. No, I didn't know what you were getting at. I'm sorry.
What I was getting at is the line at the very end of the movie.
It's something that makes him probably feel like he has a sense of worth, right?
Right. But what I was getting at is that it's the same kind of line that we hear later from Cloris Leachman when she basically says, "Oh, you'd probably leave him like a dog." It's like if you lived on a farm, you let the dog out, it runs around your farm. Well, it's never really going to go to the street. It's never really going to go, but you kind of let it out and you forget about it, and then it comes home at night, or it's brought back by because it meets the kids at the bus stop or whatever, and then it comes home with the kids or whatever. But it's that same kind of concept that we don't really realize that until that is said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've introduced the players for the most part. We'll talk, I think, should we talk about Cloris Leachman and Sonny now before we kind of jump ahead to the party, which is where I think a lot of our individual storylines really kick off? Yeah, I agree with that. All right, so Coach, he's the football coach and the basketball coach. He it's implied, but honestly, it kind of went over my head every time I see this. It's implied that he's a closeted homosexual, and I guess that's confirmed in the novel and in the commentary. But he asks Sonny to take his wife to the doctor, right?
Well, there is one thing that happens right before he asks, and I picked up on that. I was like, "Hey, Coach, what's going on there?" Because the kid was like, "Hey, Coach, what's going on there?" He's making the kids run laps in the gym,
right?
And he's sending all the kids to the showers basically, and he smacks the one kid on the ass.
Yeah.
To which I was like, "Hey," and then the kid looks back, and it's kind of a wink. Kind of.
Okay. That's what the implied is, and I missed it. Yeah.
I wouldn't. That's not enough for me when sports are involved.
Right.
Everyone smacks each other's ass. I don't mean that.
Well, I mean, to me, it was the only kid he did it to.
Yeah.
And I don't know if adults do that to young high school kids.
Right. Probably not anymore. Yeah.
We
certainly
also
not anymore.
In that scene, we have the one character, the preacher's son, running around, and he tells him not to run like a sissy. Or whatever word he uses there as well. That kid is semi-important to the film for multiple reasons. One, I don't understand at all.
Yeah,
which I'm going to ask you about later.
It's pretty left field. A couple.
I'm guessing it's probably a chapter in the book.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, he asks Sonny to pick up his wife, take her to the doctor, and I think he said it'll get him out of like practice or something, right? And Sonny, who's not all that interested in sports, it seems like something he just does because everybody does it.
There's a lot of that in this movie.
Yeah,
it's about a civics class, by the way.
That's what it is, civics class.
I wanted to prove I watched this movie.
Just thank you.
Well, you missed the smack.
He was like, "Well, hell, I'll do just about anything to get out of civics class." Yeah, except probably get slapped in the ass by Coach. But so he goes and he goes to pick up Cloris Leachman, and Cloris Leachman, pretty pretty recognizable, famous actress, lots of Emmys. She is very sort of, what's the word? Dour, plain.
She is just, you can tell that. So first of all, she wants to go to the doctor. The coach doesn't really understand why she wants to go to the doctor. Again, it's kind of the appearances, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know what's wrong with her. Just make sure she's not there too long, which is probably the worst thing.
Like, tell her you need to be back for something so that she doesn't take all day.
Come back for basketball practice.
Yeah.
So, but no, she is. She seems, in some ways, dour is a good word to use. In a lot of ways, she seems defeated. In a lot of ways, she seems like she's in mourning.
She does. She's very sad. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it. She's a dissatisfied housewife, and she just, she's like just bursts into tears at every little thing, right? And Sonny doesn't really know how to process that. But there's also, I think, something curious about her to Sonny. And there's their relationship that kind of evolves between them, which, I just come out and say it. They eventually become lovers. And
that, I think there's a little bit of there's a tiny bit of foreshadowing with that, because Sonny really is like checking out Eileen Brennan in that first.
Sure.
He's also really checking out dogs humping.
Well, he's a horny kid.
They're showing him as a very horny kid.
He breaks up with his girlfriend because she won't have sex with him. I mean, he's that kind of horny kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is weird because he's different in every other way. But go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
But at the same time, it's like he's immature,
Right.
And
there are things that
he's learning a lot of lessons. He's not a bad person.
No,
but he makes bad decisions.
Nobody said that, right? We didn't say that.
No.
Okay.
But you implied that it doesn't seem like it would be him. But I think when you're dealing with a 17-year-old boy, there's a lot of range of you're on mute, Chuck. There's a lot of range of poor decisions that happen.
Yeah, no, I more think of him as an observer, like a quiet observer, like someone who is very sentimental and very thoughtful. This other side of him is what doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
Right.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, I think what it is it's partly he's a horny 17-year-old kid stuck in a small town with limited options. Mm-hmm. He has preferences.
Yeah.
Because he's clearly into older women.
Yeah.
Because Eileen Brennan catches him checking her out to the point where she even kind of like rebuffs him without actually saying, put it back in your pants, kid. But then, so it's no surprise.
I mean, I'm not even saying that there's something there with the concession lady at the movie theater, but he's very kind to her.
Yeah.
Right?
He is like, he's
and
almost.
She's a much older woman.
Right. Well, she's much, much older compared to everybody else. But so much so that the one guy is like, well, she doesn't even know how to use a popcorn machine.
Right.
But that was a wild set of commentary that guy gave. Anyway, so, but no, he is, but like he can't, he's having a hard time processing that because, again, it goes back to that expectations and that, it's like he's expected to have all of his shit together. He's not expected to have questions.
Right.
You want a woman, you put your penis in the woman.
Yeah.
That's it.
He's expected to know how to finish. That's what tackling is, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the whole point at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
Yep.
You guys ought to know how to tackle by now.
Right. And to which was it Jeff Bridges? He's like, well, that sounds violent.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And then someone said, what happened to your school? Oh, Sam the Lion says, what happened to your school spirit to Sonny? He's like, I don't know.
It just shrug. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
shrug emoji.
Right. Well, it's that. So that kind of plays all that on we, right? Like it's he doesn't know how to process the way that he feels. He knows something is there, whether it's right or wrong, but he's almost playing off those expectations of what, because even later as Dwayne and Sonny kind of have a falling out, Sonny is catching shit for dumping his girlfriend at the beginning, which at this point is like a year ago.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, well, how do you expect me to do anything? You always had the truck or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I would have done it in five. It's like the expectation was still put on him. You find the time.
Yeah.
And he
not only that,
like
but it's like
you
don't just find the time, but you marry your high school sweetheart and start a family.
Exactly.
Right? Like when you graduate, you get married, you have a kid. I mean, that's
how towns die like this.
Yep.
You know, because it never, people don't leave. They're expected to stay there and which is kind of interesting and ironic because of what ends up happening with Sonny later.
Yeah.
So anyway, so moving on.
See, I told you guys this could be an 8-hour episode.
Yeah. Congratulations, listeners. This is the rest of our show for eternity. So the other story that's happening concerns JC and Dwayne. Dwayne has saved up his money all year to buy her this really nice watch, which is interesting because he thinks that's what wins her over, that these big shows which has probably been drilled into his head because he knows that she is the trophy wife for somebody down the line.
Totally.
And he has to live up to that. So again, expectations of this is the type of girl that needs to be wooed this way. Well, she's already kind of accepted an invitation to go to this rich kid's indoor pool party.
Yeah.
Where we will see a lot of tits, ass, bush, and penis.
It's a weird scene.
It is a weird scene. It feels it's weird. Should also mention that she's invited by a boy named Lester Marlowe, who is played by Randy Quaid in his film debut. Which is
kind of great to see, like when Jeff Bridges gets pissed about that. It's like, oh my God, it's the family. It's the family battle that we've always wanted in Hollywood. The Bridges and the Quaids going at it.
This is a Texas movie. I should have said debut, but
they're the Hatfields and McCoys.
Yeah. I mean, probably not, but in my head canon they are.
Yeah, it's good enough for me.
So anyway, so so she's like, oh, she even is kind of, because her mom is kind of urging her to experience sex. Yeah. And it's like it is kind of oddly progressive in the idea of well, kids are gonna do sex, so just get them what they need to do it. And
she didn't mean tonight though.
Right.
She said you ought to go down to the pharmacist to get, like, that was the good part of her advice, right? We need to set you up with some contraceptives or whatever you need. But instead, JC takes it as, I need to go take the world by the balls, basically, right now.
And right the fuck now. Yep.
Because in her mind, she kind of overthinks everything too, right? So like she gets this expectation, and so she immediately overthinks it and says, I've got to go, and I'm gonna throw my legs up on Jeff Bridges' lap, and I'm gonna make sure that he gets access to under my skirt and stuff.
And then I'm gonna put his hand there.
Right. Yeah. And then I'm gonna change my mind real quick. But you know what? I'm still gonna go to the rich kids party. Because maybe that's the better side of life.
It's given him just enough that's new and the promise of more to keep him satiated so that she can go do what she really wants to do. And fuck, I've been manipulated like that, and it sucks. It sucks.
Yep. But again, we're dealing with, because this movie deals a lot with like sexual politics too, in the sense of how people use that to their advantage or to their detriment.
Yep.
And it is certainly something that is used to the advantage of Cloris Leachman in one way, and in the negative way by JC. And in almost every situation with the guys, it's almost the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. It's, they're basically they're shooting off their guns before they even know what they're aiming at. Just to kind of use a Texas, that Texas understand what I'm saying, So she goes to a pool party where
also before she goes to the pool party, I want to mention that Clu Gulager shows up.
Yeah, Abilene.
Yeah, Abilene, and he brings a date to the party, to the dance.
And he basically just straight arms her to the side when Ellen Burstyn comes up.
Right, which
she plants a big one on his face.
And she's pretty pissed. His date, which she should be. And she's
like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing kissing her like that? To which Ellen Burstyn says, well, why don't you just kiss my ass?
Yeah. And so at this point, it's heavily implied. I should also mention it's not implied. It's a fact that Clu Gulager works for Burstyn's husband in the oil industry. He's like his second oil fields. He's kind of like his foreman, I think. And it's also heavily implied at this point that Clu Gulager and Ellen Burstyn have a sexual relationship. Pretty.
I don't even think it's implied. I think it's very obvious.
I mean, it's overt. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's overt. Yeah. And that's kind of important later. But JC goes to the pool party, and she and apparently when you go to a pool party at the rich kids' indoor swimming pool in the early 50s, everybody swims naked, and you have to strip in front of everyone if it's your first time.
I wouldn't be
like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if that rule was made up just for JC, though.
Yeah, right.
Honestly. But
it feels a little exploitative.
Well, certainly in this movie, when everything stops, the music stops, and we're just watching her get dressed, and I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
she has a lot of underwear. Did you guys notice that?
So the women in this have tons of clippings and clipping parts to their underwear and their whatever.
And in Texas, I imagine that's got to get sweaty. She wears a lot of underwear. I figured, okay.
Well, this is Christmas time, so
I guess she's unclipping everything. She's got like 8 different pairs of undergarments. It's crazy.
Really, okay, she's got. Okay, I mean it's not 8, but it's
pretty darn close. All right, she's got a bra. She's got she's got like a corset thing.
No, it's a slip.
All right, fine.
She's got a garter.
She's got a garter. She's got 2 stockings, and she's got her. All right, so it's 5 plus her dress, 6. So she's wearing 6 articles of clothing.
That is the expectation that women are to be that covered, though.
I'm just saying that's a lot.
Because Cloris Leachman has the same amount on.
Fair.
Yes, she does.
Fair. It's the expectation of the time. I mean, that's just.
I'm not saying it's not like time. I know, but it's just weird.
Well, but we get to see every single second of every single piece coming off.
We do, and you notice that one time, which the first stocking she throws didn't make it. It went into the water.
Yeah, it went into the water.
That's going to be a wet stocking. Yeah.
You know what's funny about that is
I have a feeling she's not worried about that later.
No, I don't think so.
I had a thought in that moment, and this is stupid, of the director off to the side yelling, "Throw the next one harder," because she makes the next throw.
Yeah,
yeah.
But she also gets a little off balance, and then she falls on her butt on the
diving board.
You're stripping on. Yeah, it's also creepy that like the host's little brother is there and he's naked. It's a weird scene.
So, well, I think some of that is,
and I never ever need to see Randy Quaid's pubic hair. I just don't.
Well, if you run into him in real life, you might. I'm not completely and totally unconvinced that he doesn't shave it off and glue it to his face. Anyway, so his
he's coming for you now, man.
Bring it on, old man. Anyway, so yeah, I think this is kind of like, this is the life that everybody wants, but it's also kind of presented as this kind of deviant, and what in Texas would probably be considered an East Coast kind of deviance, right? Like it's, when you're a weirdo if you're rich, you're kind of an outsider, you're, but it's the
it
thing.
Feels like an eccentricism, right?
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's almost. I mean, if we want to go one step further in an analogy, it's almost like she's kind of entered into a almost like a hell. Like she's been now kind of corrupted by this, which is fine because she was already exactly. It's
because she's going into the water, and it's
And what's interesting too is there's like a parallel thing happening that's also this sort of sexual deviance happening back in town with all the boys and Billy. They all decide to go ahead and get a prostitute so that Billy can lose his virginity, and it's this really disturbing kind of scene, more disturbing than the pool party, where at least there's an element of consent happening, right? Whereas with Billy, it's this really, I don't know,
baptism by fire.
They're being bullies, and even the prostitute is bullying.
Yeah, I've got kind of I'm of two minds with this scene, because I think if the guys are bullying Billy, which I think they kind of are, but I don't really think they mean to. I think they're just saying, "Hey, this will make you normal like the rest of us." But I don't think they necessarily mean it in as negative way as not like later when in the next movie that we see when a kid gets pantsed when he's asking a girl out.
They're doing it for their own to satisfy their own boredom.
Yeah,
they're not doing it for this kid's good. But yeah, I do think there is an element of that. It's like they don't understand what's wrong with him, and so maybe if this experience happens to them, he'll snap out of it, right? And
or
Sonny,
he at least won't be as weird,
right? And Sonny and Dwayne, this is kind of a moment where they know it's wrong, but they don't stand up to their friends when
and that's a hard thing that's a really hard thing for guy friends to do.
It's a completely relatable theme and idea, right? I mean, it's happened to all of us. There's things that I've gone along with in my life that I know I shouldn't have, that I did, and I felt intense shame for it, right?
Oh yeah,
it's good. It's part of growing up.
Yeah, it's like coming of age. Yeah,
right, and it plays out, I think, in a really sweet and meaningful way after the fact, because it
ends up creating a different relationship that was kind of there before but really takes off from here,
right, with Sam the Lion,
right. So basically what happens is and even it's even a little bullying towards the prostitute too, because let's face it, she's a big gal. But they all chip in. They buy Billy some pussy, as they say, and she. So they put him in the back of the car with this big gal, and he has a premature ejaculation, to which she slaps him and bloodies his nose and kicks him out, and they take him home to Sam the Lion, who apparently takes care of him. And he's like, so who thought this was a good idea? And it's like, and he says the one thing that means more than anything else, which was
it cuts like a knife.
Yeah, it's like, you didn't even bother to wash his face.
Yeah, that's what he says to Sonny directly.
Right.
When Sonny says we were just having a little fun, we didn't mean anything by it, and that really cuts Sonny. He realizes how what he did.
Well, and also
he had questioned doing it in the first place too.
He did.
He knew it was not a good idea, but he did not jump into the situation, which he often does in this movie. He thinks through things, but he doesn't do anything about it.
Right. Which is tough. Which we, as we were saying, it's tough for young guys to know what part you jump and which part do you stand up to, even your friends.
Right.
But the punishment is relatively severe.
Yeah.
Which is Sam's like, I don't want any of your businesses anymore. Like, don't go to the movies, don't go to the diner, don't come to the pool hall ever again. And Sam says something really, really kind of interesting to kind of show that he's not exactly in favor of of the town the way it is either, which is, I've seen your kind of behavior all my life and I'm sick of it. Meaning it's time to grow up, basically. It's like there's no sense in these cycles continuously repeating.
Also important to note that Dwayne is hiding in the back of the car.
Yes, he's pretending to be asleep, to which when he wakes up, when everybody gets back in, wakes up, air quotes, when
it's
everybody
a good thing
gets
I was sleeping.
Yeah, because I
couldn't play pool.
I couldn't play pool if I was. Yeah. So, which is again just kind of it shows Dwayne's immaturity as well, because he is somebody who is always looking out for himself, but he too is a little bit. He's too hot-headed about stuff too. But some more time passes.
So I have a thing here. Some more time passes. In fact, 2 weeks exactly pass, because that's when Sonny goes into the diner and Eileen Brennan makes him
cheeseburger.
A cheeseburger. And there's something really strange here, because it then cuts back to whoever's house, the guy who has the pool party. And it is not clear to me that this is a different day.
I was confused too.
Pool. It is. I think the one technical flaw of this movie is that it is edited poorly here, because I don't think that is a different night. I think it's supposed to be the same night, but chronologically the way it's cut, it's 2 weeks later.
Right. Yeah, I do think they thought, well, we probably need to put JC back in here someplace. So let's just take this scene that we decided was too long over here and put, I agree. Although I look at it as her continually, because it does make it seem like that Dwayne has been not around JC for like 2 or 3 weeks. Because he's kind of growing more and more frustrated too, as we see later. But
there's a moment too I want to mention. When she falls into the pool, she forgot to take her watch off that Dwayne gave her, and it stops ticking. She goes to put it to her ear. There's a moment of kind of panic, but then the boy that she really wants, the rich kid,
Bobby Sheen,
thank you, and she just kind of shrugs like, oh well, right. It really hammers home the vapidness of her character in that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, here's the thing. This character is not written this way because she's a girl.
Right.
And it's not one of those where it's like, oh, you just made the girl the bad guy. No, everybody's a bad guy in different ways. It just so happens that she was never a good guy.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not a commentary on pretty people. It's not a commentary on gender or whatever. It's a commentary on some people hide their intent better than others. And some people get blinded by relatively stupid shit, as we find out is the case with Sonny for sure. Yeah. They are blinded by they're shallow. They're shallow people. And in a small town, the prettiest person in town probably is also going to be pretty shallow.
Yeah, I mean the villain really isn't any one person. The villain is the environment.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the creeping boredom that's setting in on everybody.
Yeah.
So he ends up being found in the diner by Sam the Lion, because Sam comes in with Billy to get lunch or something like that. He sees Sonny there, and it looks like he's about to kick him out, but Eileen Brennan kind of gives a look, and and so he's like, well, eat your food when Sonny's trying to excuse
your
himself.
food's getting cold.
Your food's getting cold. And what, Chuck, you like the line that he barked to Eileen Brennan?
Oh yeah, he says, "Chicken, fry me a steak and try to use meat this time."
So they sit at the table with Sonny, and Sonny is like, and Billy is so excited to see Sonny. And that's very sweet that, it's like, obviously there is a kinship between the two of them.
Yeah, because he always flips his hat around every time he sees him, and then he takes it off, and then he does it again. Like, yeah, this is the first time I really got the sense that these three in particular have been together for a long time in some fashion or another. And the next scene after this, like, totally cements that.
Exactly. So at this point, he apologizes to Sam, and he's like, it's like, Sam, I'm really just sorry. To which Sam kind of, forgives him and realizes it's kind of that Sonny had kind of learned his lesson.
Right.
And I think he also kind of maybe understands not only that Sonny and Billy have this really close relationship, but that Sonny's a kid and he's going to make mistakes. And he later relates that he kind of made a mistake of his own.
Yep.
So smash cut to probably all of our favorite scenes in this movie. So Sam decides to take Sonny and Billy fishing at this kind of pond. It really isn't. They call it a tank.
It's a tank
because it's probably a retention pond.
Retention pond for sure.
Yep. So they, the two kids are basically skipping rocks. They're not really paying attention to the lines that they've cast. And Sam is rolling a cigarette, which I have a feeling that Ben Johnson has rolled many a cigarette.
Probably most of them for John Wayne.
He was John Wayne. Yeah, he was Robin to John Wayne's Batman for sure.
Sure was.
So go ahead. You guys have lots to say about this. So I'll give up the floor here.
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, okay. Well, he calls them over. He says, check your lines. And it's basically, well, not like there's any fish in here anyway, right? Just turtles, I think, is what Sonny says. And then he starts kind of getting a little nostalgic, starts really confiding in Sonny about his own youth and talking about how he used to even own that land, and he sold it a long time ago. And how the land has changed and how the town has changed. And he's really confiding in Sonny a lot of his own disaffection, which to me is so powerful because he's talking, to what you want to imagine is a younger version of himself, right? And he's almost trying to present himself as a cautionary tale to Sonny. Don't get stuck here is sort of what I take away from what he's telling them. But he tells a story about a young woman that he was in love with. What did he say?
He met her after his wife had gone crazy, I think, or something to that effect.
Yeah. And he kind of tells him that, he would have followed this girl everywhere. In fact, he did. She wanted to ride horses across the tank, and which is like a wild, crazy thing to do or something like that. But I followed her, right? And obviously, whatever that relationship was, didn't pan out for him.
She was married.
That's right. She was. That's right. She was married.
And
That's
she was 20 years his younger. He would have been in his 40s. She was 21, I think he says.
Is that right? I forgot that.
It was 20 or 21, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's definitely lamenting it, but he also, I think, probably the most important line of the film after they talk a little bit more
Oh yeah, he called
Sonny,
her something wild, which I love.
something wild, and Sonny is kind of getting at, well, do you regret it? Or maybe Ben Johnson or saying the line is saying I regret it, and then he said no, being crazy about a woman like that is always the right thing to do.
Yep. That's
that's good. I mean, because there's a life to that, right?
Yep.
Because it's like because that maybe would have been his chance to leave. If he had that opportunity. Now, of course, he was married too, but the truth is that he is saying it's like, sometimes you just gotta let it dangle out there in the wind and see what happens. I imagine that's how he would have said it, but
I know how he would have said it. Being crazy about a woman like that is always the right thing to do.
Oh, okay.
That's how he would have said it.
Okay. So I think I just gave the Leslie Nielsen version.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're like, let her rip.
And then he rips a fart. Yeah. So it's, and that's.
You talked to not Chuck, Jeff, about the camera work in this scene.
Yeah, because he's telling that story. And as he's telling that story, he's kind of got a 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah. And
the camera is slowly closing in on him, and it gets to a certain point where it's like basically like a shoulders up shot, and then it backs away, and then he keeps telling the story, and it kind of slowly starts going. You're kind of getting into his life.
Yeah.
He is this kind of heart of this town, and you're not. He's kind of this stoic person, but the way that he's talking about the story and the camera pushing in and out is kind of letting you in and shielding you at the same time. He's letting you, the camera moving in is when he's letting you in on his past, and then when it starts to pull away, he's kind of going back to his stoicism.
Yeah.
It's good work.
It's the scene that won him the Academy Award. If
surely
it has to be. I mean, because as we know, he's not in much more of this film.
Yeah, that happens at the halfway point.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the very next scene, Sonny and Dwayne decide, screw it, we're not happy with anything. Let's go out to Mexico.
It's New Year's Eve, right? Mexico.
Yeah.
New Year's Eve. Mexico, New Year's Eve.
I've been here before. I've literally done this before.
We know a couple of guys.
You've been to Mexico for New Year's Eve?
Maybe not New Year's Eve, but definitely holiday times where we all decide, let's go to Mexico.
Let's go to Mexico.
Jeff Bowe decides, let's go to Mexico. We go to Mexico.
Yeah.
Well, we know a couple of other people who went to Mexico once and have stories to tell.
It's come up twice in like the last month and a half on episodes, I think.
Oh God. That's for Film Seizure After Dark.
Yeah.
None of us are involved, listeners. But we know people who have been. All right.
Can I mention that earlier in the movie at some point the basketball team lost 121-14?
Yeah,
that's
got to be some kind of a record.
It probably was, because that was a no shot clock era.
Yeah. Sure. One other thing I want to mention before we press on here.
Coach Popper is not a very good coach.
He sucks. He's not a good motivator.
Until the next year. He's good the next year.
Because he's slapping too many boys' asses.
Yeah, probably.
By the way, I just looked it up. The boy that he slaps on the ass is Kathleen Kennedy's husband.
Oh, weird. That's weird.
That is weird.
Yep.
What did you look up? Boy Popper slaps an ass?
No.
How did you figure this out?
No,
that would give you a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
It's like going to dicks.com.
Well, it's like,
you don't want to do that.
The response came back. It's like, you've asked for weirder, Jeff. In the
darkest timeline.
On Wikipedia, under cast, the last person mentioned is Frank Marshall as Tommy Logan, a high school student/athlete. Comes here, played a small part as the player who is smacked on the backside by Coach Popper during basketball practice.
There you go. All right.
There you go.
All right.
I was going to say, and this is like building up, but it kind of connects here for me. And somebody had even mentioned this earlier, that Sam the Lion may see Sonny as a younger version of himself. Well,
100%.
everyone in the town relies on Sam the Lion in one way or another, either out of necessity or because he's the kind of person you look up to.
Yeah.
Well, Sonny is being asked to do stuff by his coach, being looked up to by the coach's wife in some ways. Everybody likes Sonny. Like, they're both kind of, he's like the younger version of the backbone of the city, and the story like shakes with him. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, everything that happens around Sonny is like, it happens on a bigger scale, almost like he's like the epicenter of the town.
Yeah, sure. It's definitely it is definitely positioned that Sonny will be Sam the Lion.
Well, they literally
25 years.
They literally give you that one, which is kind of a little bit annoying the way.
Well,
they do that.
But I mean, also I was kind of reading about what was going on in the sequel in Texasville, and he is kind of the Sam the Lion. Yeah. Pretty much, because there is something going on with his character.
I think that's sad.
That is kind of seismic throughout that story.
I think that's sad though, because I don't know. I don't think Sam wanted that for him.
I think Sam I don't think Sam wanted it for him, but I think that this is a situation where Sonny was never going to leave. Let's face it. I mean, Sonny couldn't move. Like he can't easily, like he can't even call off the relationship with Genevieve, or not Genevieve, with Ruth. He can't call that relationship off when he needs to. He cannot stand up for his own wants and desires. He's just kind of trapped. The moment that he kind of almost has that, it's all ruined by somebody else's bad planning.
Well, I was going to say that, Jason, while I agree in some ways it's sad, but this story is really how Sonny became, for lack of a better word, and to tie it in, a lion in some ways. He comes from meekness, right? He's a little bit meek. Maybe that's the wrong word, but he's definitely quiet and understated most of the time. He doesn't pipe up, which he does start to do later, for sure. So I think his arc is that arc. It's the same arc of Sam the Lion.
Yeah, I agree. It is. I just, there's still a sadness to that, and I think it's because of that fact that this town is dying. And anyone trapped in its whirlpool is a victim to me. But you're right. I mean, he does. In a lot of sadness, he becomes a better man. He certainly stands up to, a lot of men 20, 30 years older than him who are acting like awful children. At the end of the movie, and he owns up to his mistakes with Ruth, however meekly.
Yeah, I'm going to say that he really didn't. That somebody else became. Basically,
it's hard to say, right? Because it could be also that he just didn't realize what he had, and he wanted it again. Right?
Well, I would say that the end of this movie kind of proves that the town is reset in another loop, basically. Basically, the people who were going to leave left, but it was really only two. Everybody else is trapped and taken on a new role that somebody else has vacated.
Yeah, I agree with that. For sure.
Because I would say that Ruth's outburst is exactly what she needed, but then she reverts back to a not great position.
Let's talk a little bit more about their relationship, because we haven't gone into that, and we haven't talked a lot about Cloris Leachman's performance, which also earned an Academy Award. I think what's amazing about her performance is her transformation. She goes from this very meek, timid housewife into this very self-assured, almost sexually liberated woman, because of her relationship with Sonny. I mean, when you first meet Cloris Leachman, she is very dour, as I said, very kind of unattractive, just very sad. And then later, like post-coitus with Sonny later, she's combing, I know, I said it. She's combing her hair.
Don't ever say that ever again.
It's this beautiful blonde hair, and she looks 10 years younger. There's something amazing about that. And she's beaming, right? And her performance really accentuates that. It is almost like she's finding this new coming of age herself, right?
Well, she is, and she's starting to think about her prison in a different way. Like, she wants to decorate it. She wants to make it look nicer. She wants to, like, what's your favorite color, Sam? I'm going to get us a new quilt. I said Sam, is that right? Sonny. Sorry.
Sonny.
Yeah.
She's found some zest for life.
Yeah.
Right. But even in that, there's sadness, right? Because you get the sense that this relationship is doomed.
It can't last. There's no way it can last.
Right.
And so what do we have next? Oh, go ahead.
And of course he does. He leaves her for the prettiest girl in town, the rich oil baron's daughter, our JC, who is no longer with Dwayne, because Dwayne has left for, where did he go to get in the oil rigs? He got a job.
Yeah, he went to another town, and then did he go to Wichita Falls or
maybe?
I don't remember.
But he left.
Why did Sonny do this? Because
why did he do what?
Why did he go for JC? Why does he leave Popper for JC?
Well, he again is he
because
falls.
Sam the Lion told him to.
Well, yeah. I guess you're right.
Sam the Lion told him to. And this is what unravels the movie, is that advice that was earnest.
Yeah.
Well, I think you could say it's earnest and good advice contextually.
Right, as all advice in this movie.
Right.
That's a big part of what I think Bogdanovich or McMurtry, whatever it is trying to say, is that context is important in all cases.
Right,
but maybe,
because
if
it was just
for the wrong woman, right? I mean, a woman like that's a wide berth.
Okay, so when we get to the who she is, it's woman, it's the same fucking woman.
Oh, I know.
Right, so she's not the wrong woman.
But it's more age appropriate.
It's the choice Sam would have made, though.
But it's more age appropriate. So, but you think about, Cloris Leachman. She's
the opposite. She's like Sam. She's the Sam.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Layers, man.
Yeah, I mean, but I would say that if it was, like if Sonny had left town and met somebody like JC, but in a different town, in a different scenario, not connected to anything else, then you go for it. JC is not a good person.
Well, the kids in this movie, JC does it at I say behest or whatever, because of the advice her mother had given her. But
JC's
she acts on it.
4 role models.
But she acts on it impulsively, right? Which is we are going to do when we're 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
And I don't think adults realize when they give younger people advice that they need time. They need to be given that context that is never given with the advice here, right?
Yeah.
They go and act on it right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So.
Well, they're not given the full breadth of the consequences.
Right, or any of it. But
they're just given the element of regret, at least in this case.
But you also have that when you look at something from 40 years ago, right, or 20 years ago. Oftentimes you remember the good things.
Sure.
So even when you're speaking about them, you put a glow on what may have not been a good situation in the first place, but you want to remember the good things.
Yep. Yeah. Even the bad things, you remember the good things about them. Yeah.
Yes. So the boys do go to Mexico, right? Did you have anything else you wanted to say about Leachman, Jason?
No, we're good.
Yeah. So they go to Mexico, and when we see them next, it's a few days later, and they're driving back hungover, with sombreros.
It's kind of a funny scene.
Yeah.
Like, I like when movies do this, and I won't go on too long. I know this is already a 9-hour episode. But I like when movies don't give us the Mexico trip.
Right.
But they give us the everything that happened in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. You could tell just by looking at them in the truck what Mexico was like. You could have guessed it anyway, but we didn't need to see it, and that was enough for me. I'm like, oh great, they had an amazing trip, and now they're sick as dogs.
Right.
Yeah. They somehow made it home.
And their attitude, or like the way they look, is the attitude you should have coming back to the humdrum.
We do have to say one other thing, and I'm sorry.
No.
Before they leave town, they go and offer to take Sam the Lion with them. I don't know if it's in jest or not, but Sam is sitting on the curb. He gets up. The boys, he asks them if they have enough money, right? And then he, like, you know, like the fatherly guy. They're like, oh, we have plenty of money. He's like, well, take some just for, you know,
just for an emergency, or
just
something.
in case. Money kind of burns in Mexico, you know, like you'll burn through that real quick. But when he drives away, when the boys drive away in all that youth to Mexico, Sam has that look in his eyes. Yeah. Like, you know, you can infer a lot of things from that.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. And I like to think that, and as a person, you know, we're all, you know, guys getting a little bit older. Our days of just picking up and going to Mexico are pretty slim to none, right?
Right.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm leaving right after this episode.
Did I come with you?
There's a sense of living vicariously in that scene.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he saw again something he probably did 35 years ago, or
there was something
40 years ago.
There was something he wanted to say that he did not say.
Yeah.
And we don't get to find out what that is.
I have a feeling that maybe what he wanted to say was, maybe don't come back.
Maybe.
You know, maybe just keep driving, you know. And, but I don't know. But so when they get back, they realize the pool hall's closed. So they're kind of like, well, maybe, and the diner's closed too, I think. And they're like, well, he doesn't even close for Christmas. What's going on? So they go ask this old guy who's just hanging out in the town, like in the middle of the street.
He's a cop. He's a sheriff or something.
Was he the sheriff?
He's a cop. I'm pretty sure he's a cop.
Jeez, not much you have to do to get that job, apparently.
Because when they wake him up, they say, Barney, if you sleep like this, they'll steal the whole town or something stupid. I can't remember what they say.
So he says, he had a stroke. He died. And he starts talking about the will that they found and all the crazy shit. He left the pool hall to you, Sonny. That's a hell of a thing. They left the diner to Genevieve, which is the only smart thing in it. He said, but all the while that he's talking about we're hearing the crazy shit in the background, and it's pushing in on Sonny, who's like destroyed by this. And he's like, and he left the movie theater to the old lady who does the
old lady Moses,
and she's so out of it she can't even operate the popcorn machine. And then he says, well, and of all things, he left $1,000 to the preacher's son, which was one of their classmates. We saw him briefly at one point. It looks like he's trying to comb his hair because he sits next to JC.
I think he's also the one that's running like a weirdo or a sissy.
Yeah, he is a weirdo. He's just an all around weirdo. And he said, I'm trying to remember his name is here someplace. Hang on a second. It is,
Tommy Logan?
No, Tommy Logan got smacked in the butt.
Yeah.
Bark Doyle as Joe Bob Blanton.
Bob.
That's him, right. Joe Bob.
Yeah, Joe Bob.
You should have remembered Joe Bob. How could
I know.
You
right. Anyway, so they and so I gave him $1,000, and that weirdo kid, I don't know what he gets $1,000 for.
But I really need to know.
Well, I'm guessing these are all the people who are most important in his life, in some way or another. Now, Joe Bob,
that's what I want to understand, what that importance is. Yeah.
My guess is that in certain situations or in certain circumstances, Sam has departed or imparted some sort of knowledge or some sort of life lesson to various younger people in town. Some of them end up becoming his employees, like Genevieve was probably one of those. And also, maybe old lady Moses. But anyway, he's gone, and now Sonny's got to grow up a little bit. And so the next thing we see is a parade headed towards the senior class picnic for the school, and they drive by the retention pond, and Sonny kind of maybe really for the first time actually shows a lot of emotion.
Yeah,
because he cries for remembering that conversation that he had with Sam, and it's shortly after that
he just loved Sam. I mean,
they went fishing every year together.
Yeah,
every year they went.
We saw none of Sonny's parents.
No,
so obviously Sam.
Well, we did.
We saw Sonny's dad.
We saw Sonny's dad at the party, and they acted like they hadn't seen each other in a week.
That's right. Yeah.
Sonny's dad is on the pills. He's got problems. Sonny and Dwayne, I feel, are both neglected by their parents.
Yeah. So Sonny looks at Sam as
his dad. Yeah, for sure.
And Dwayne carries a chip on his shoulder, because he ends up deciding to leave town after he and JC try to have sex once, fails. The next time, after he begs during their practice for the
choir,
it was for the graduation. And it's kind of great because he's just like the whole time, like when he's not being looked at, he is just begging her to try again for sex, and they do, and he succeeds, but she's not satisfied by it. It's kind of a self-fulfilled prophecy that.
And the only reason she wants to have sex with him is because the boy that
Bobby Sheen
wants to be with Bobby Sheen won't be with her because she's a virgin.
Yeah,
right.
Because honestly, it shows her naivete, because he doesn't want to be with her because she's a virgin, because he doesn't want her to cling to him, I would assume, right? Because being her first, and he wants someone who is more experienced, who isn't going to put so much emphasis on sex,
right,
as an emotional thing,
right.
Obviously, he's the guy who runs nude pool parties, right?
He's a playboy.
He's a playboy.
That's all you have to say. Really.
Thanks.
He's a playboy. Yeah.
You're right. And but she doesn't see it that way, and she thinks, well, I have to lose my virginity if Bobby Sheen's going to want to marry me, which is so naive it hurts, and so that's why she has sex with Dwayne.
Right. And much like her mom predicted, she kind of reacts like, oh, well, you probably didn't do it right. And just kind of basically throws him away instantly because he calls her up wanting to go for round 3.
Yeah.
It's a rubber match.
She at that point has gotten everything she wants from him, and her mother's prophecy has come true.
And now she can go to Bobby Sheen and say, hey, I did that thing, so let's do this thing.
But what happened? Bobby Sheen gets married.
Right. She waited too long. And then, right. But at that point, Dwayne's like, I'm getting out of town. There's nothing left for me here. So he leaves. And it's as shortly after that, we find out that Joe Bob has run off with somebody.
Yeah, this is weird. This is like a weird thing.
Well, I think it has to stay here for one thing that happens. So they take off, and everybody in the pool hall, Sonny included, go on the manhunt for Joe Bob, who's just sitting there in his car with this. We find out it's a little girl. Mm-hmm. To which I think the only thing they said, he didn't do anything, but he convinced the little girl to take off her underwear or something. Yeah. Which, I mean, it's weird and it's gross, but at the same time, it's like, the mom would have probably literally have killed the dude.
Well, even Sonny says if she had a gun, she would have killed all of us.
Everybody. Right. So,
but it's interesting the way that Sonny rationalizes Joe Bob too.
Yeah.
This is like one of the things I still was reconciling, and maybe now because I watched this movie yesterday, with Joe Bob's reaction to people that, or not Joe Bob, excuse me, Sonny's reaction to people that maybe aren't great people. He still tries to like soften them in a way because he keeps saying about Joe Bob, he didn't do anything. Well, yes, he did. He fucking did.
He kidnapped a little girl
and got her to take her pants off. Like, you don't need another step for that to be a bad thing.
Right.
And maybe I don't know if that's the time. I know that.
But I also think that Sonny recognized. I don't know. This is a hard thing to say.
I feel like
I think he recognized that Joe Bob maybe realized that he'd taken things too far and maybe had a conscious moment, a moment of conscience.
Maybe.
And maybe Sonny is just a person who wants to find the good in people and doesn't like to dwell on the bad in people.
Or he recognizes, because like, who are the people that Sonny is closest to in the long run? He's closest to somebody who is suffering from depression and someone who is mentally handicapped. And he may see in Joe Bob that he has something going on.
Yeah.
What about Dwayne?
Dwayne, but is he really?
He's his best friend.
Yeah,
Dwayne,
but they never. I mean, I never really.
Dwayne almost made him lose his eye, and he's still like willing to forgive him. I think that there's just something inherently forgiving about Sonny.
Yeah, I feel as
you
though
don't see in people very often.
Right, which is maybe why Sam gave Sonny a second chance.
Yeah.
Anyway, but no, as far as like, Dwayne is Sonny's best friend, but Dwayne, I think Sonny realizes later he really isn't, and because
I don't know about that.
Well, Dwayne never reciprocated. Really,
they're brothers. They share a truck. Like
they share.
I'm just saying, this is what happens with your family.
Well, they're not brothers,
but they are. That's what I'm saying. They're brothers. They're like brothers. They share a vehicle. They do everything together. Your relationship with people like that is just different. Right? It doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't go through all the pleasantries with people like that all the time.
Well, fair enough, but I think they did a very good job of making Dwayne the flip side of JC, not the flip side of Sonny.
I can agree with that.
I think it's relatively pointed that Dwayne's not a great friend, or at least not a great guy to put a whole lot of trust in.
At least at that point.
Yeah,
I think when they see each other later, things have changed.
Yeah, because they both have grown up a little bit later.
Yeah.
And they're separate, and JC's gone too.
Because Sonny does something too, and I think we're about to talk about this. Sonny starts dating JC.
Right. So that's exactly where I was headed. So yeah, I think the whole reason why they left that whole thing with Joe Bob as part of the story is to have the big hubbub and Sonny to be able to say to JC, yeah, I was there. And yeah, all this. And for her to kind of use that as an opportunity to say, hey, it's like there's so many, scary things that can happen in the world or whatever. And she kind of worms her way into his life, which then he basically leaves Ruth
at the altar in a lot of ways, because she's dressed in what looks like a wedding dress, right? She's in a white dress. It almost looks like I think it's supposed to be like a left at the altar kind of moment.
Yeah.
That's the way they make it look.
Yeah, and they certainly it's even worse when she goes to the hospital to see him. But they For the weekend, Dwayne kind of blows back into town. And it is, they have a falling out because, JC and Sonny were kind of dating each other for a little while. And and Dwayne smashes a bottle on his face, which messes up his eye real bad. After that, Ruth comes to visit him in the hospital, and he's like, can you just tell her I'm asleep? So he can't face up to the really important stuff.
Right.
He could go with the rest of the guys to go track down Joe Bob, but he can't on his own do something important. And then JC and Sonny get married.
They sure do.
They run off and get married, and they're on their way to Oklahoma for their honeymoon, and they get stopped by a policeman who, because JC left a note with their exact plans.
Yeah.
Well, obviously she wants to get caught.
I think so,
right?
too.
No, it's obvious. She's looking back, and she even says, "Oh no!" when the cop turns around.
Well, because she didn't even want him. Like he's trying to snuggle up to her, and she's like, "I can't even drive." Like she doesn't even want him.
All of this for attention. She wanted the attention, the story back in town.
But what kind of attention do you think? And what? And to what end?
Anything to talk about her.
She's trying to avoid the boredom of her mother's life. In my opinion.
And also it makes her it will come across as she's a little bit more appealing now because she is kind of wild.
She's dangerous.
She's a dangerous, wild horse that needs to be tamed.
She's kind of the false wild of Sam's wild woman in a lot.
Exactly.
But what do you think that she really wants? Like,
she doesn't know.
She has no idea.
I think the problem is she does not know what she wants, and
she only knows what's
to,
expected of her.
Yeah, and like you were talking about the ennui or whatever, ennui, however you're supposed to pronounce that.
You got it.
Like she's trying to. She's in a dying town, right?
Yeah.
None of them have a future. That's the weird thing. Like when we talk about next week's movie.
But wasn't she going to go to college? Like, why wouldn't she just go to college? That seems like a good way to get out.
Because her mother told her she
too much responsibility.
No, her mom said you need to get that experience.
Yeah.
And so she's blowing through the experience while she can.
Yeah. Really, literally, quite literally.
Probably.
Yeah. It is something wild.
Not literally. I didn't mean literally.
Well,
but yeah,
I can only imagine.
I'm just asking questions because she intrigues me. I mean, I think in a lot of ways
she's got you.
She's the hardest, pardon the pun, but the hardest nut to crack, right?
I kind of hate her.
Yeah, but
I don't know if she. I don't know. Well, hold on. I don't know if she deserves it.
That's fair.
I really don't know if she deserves my
her
hatred.
naivete got her into because again, the first 10 minutes of the movie, she's the perfect girlfriend.
Yeah, I think she's just incredibly naive. I really do think.
Or manipulate, being.
She's manipulative. She is pretty manipulative.
She is pretty manipulative.
But she doesn't even know how to use her powers of manipulation to get anything meaningful.
Yeah, because she ends up seducing Clu Gulager.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
Realizes, oh shit, he did not fall for what I wanted him to.
Well, he first he's a predator, and second, she again was naive about what that was going to turn into.
Yeah, because he was basically like,
you never know how an evening's going to go, and then goes in for the kiss, and he's just like, get out of my car.
Yeah, get the fuck out.
What's funny about that too, though,
it's a pretty rude awakening, but she doesn't learn anything from it.
No,
the only thing she maybe learns is that she needs to be the dominant one, right?
When she said, "You never know how an evening manipulate is going to go," she planned all this. She knew exactly what she was doing with him as soon as he walked into the house.
But she didn't expect for him to reject her.
Well, yeah, but that hadn't happened yet. When she said, "You never know how an evening's going to go."
She also didn't know that when she was sitting at home at night watching television that she was going to end up having sex with a man twice her age either.
No, but as soon as he walked in the door, that was her plan.
Sure.
100%.
Sure.
And then she realizes, right, like he's an awful man. I don't know what she expected out of it. That's obviously the part that's missing, right? She expected some kind of euphoria, some kind of gratitude.
It also feels like it's a way to get power over her mother, right? It
feels like it's a lot of things.
It is a lot of things.
She surrenders to her mother right away, though.
She does.
I mean,
that I think is a really interesting moment, because she tells her mom exactly what happens without even explicitly telling her, and her mother understands and commiserates. That is fascinating.
Yeah, she had sex with the same man.
And that's when she says, we need to change your tactics. That's some crazy shit, man.
Well, but that also plays a really important part later, because later on, Ellen Burstyn also tells Sonny that she knew what was going on with him and Ruth.
Yeah.
And that he should have just stayed with her.
Everybody knew.
Everybody knew, right.
Including her husband, probably, right? And he didn't care.
Did this happen before the scene with the mom? I think it happens after, right? They go to elope.
They get picked up, and then she drives Sonny home because...
No, I meant as far as her having sex with Clu Gulager. That happened before they elope. Does it not, or does it happen after?
I think it happens...
Either way.
That happened before. Before. So she drives him home, and she's like, yeah, you should have stayed with Ruth. I'm telling you, you don't want any part of JC.
Right.
Which is her mom, basically, I think, kind of coming to terms with the fact that, I have kind of created a monster. Or a monster is coming. This is my doing by nature or something. Yeah.
And she knows there's nothing genuine about what JC is doing.
Right.
Right. She's going to be aware of that.
Right. And she also, that's when she reveals that, she was Sam's, wild one.
Yes.
Because she was most broken up about Sam's death at his funeral.
Yeah, she walks away quick.
She walked away, yeah.
Yeah, and she starts crying here in this scene. It's actually a really interesting scene. There's some hard hitters here, because this scene kind of hit hard with me, because as she's talking about her being the wild woman for Sam, the way that Sonny's a little drunk, but he's also like, he's just got that look in his eyes, right?
Yeah.
And she even thinks for a moment, when she's about to let him get out of the car, like,
sure does.
There's my Sam the Lion all over again, right? Yeah. And then she's like, no, I had to just go home.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's great.
So good.
Well, and the thing is again, this movie has kind of reset again, right? Because we're back to the beginning, except for we're earlier in the timeline. It's just kind of reset itself.
Right.
It's, because he's had his moment with the wild one, but it wasn't really the,
there's
it's not
something
the right
about
thing, but it's kind of reset everything in the town.
You're absolutely right about the cycle, right? It is a cycle, and it's learned behaviors from your elders passed along to the youngers, and it's not right and it's not wrong. It's just how things are in this town, right? Mm-hmm. And it is a cycle that continues to perpetuate itself, and it will until you get out, if you ever get out.
Right.
And I think that's part of the poignancy and the sadness of the movie is it's not necessarily putting any judgment on anything, but it's making some observations that are hard to face.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, well, what happens next is that, everything has kind of gone back to normal. Dwayne's come into town. JC is left to go to Dallas for college. She originally was going to go to Wichita Falls, but decided to go to Dallas to go away as opposed to living at home and going. And Dwayne and Sonny kind of reconcile, and they decide, hey, the Last Picture Show is playing. This is the end of an era, basically, and it really kind of shows too, because we do get a look at the town at the very, very end.
Yeah,
it is dead at this point. Like, I mean, think about it. It's like when you close the town's only place for entertainment, you know, the theater, you've killed that town.
The only time you see people in this movie, like more than 3, is when a child is abducted or somebody dies.
Yeah.
That's really the only time there's a crowd.
Right. So they go to the
or at least late in the movie. Sorry,
I guess the party, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, but that's while there is still a thought that there is life.
Yeah,
you know, that there's a life to be lived.
True.
So they go to the Last Picture Show, which also happens to be a great title for a movie. And they and a book, I assume. But they go, and you know, Dwayne's got to ship off the next morning because he's joined the army and he's going off to Korea. And everybody's kind of, you know, this is his last hurrah, basically. And so he and Sonny kind of hang out pretty much all night, is what my thought is, because they're waiting for the bus the next morning, and he's like, hey, you know, take care of my car while I'm gone, and I'll see you around, basically. And so he gets on the bus and he leaves, and later Sonny goes to get the pool hall up and running, and he hears something happening at the crossroads, basically, in town. And he realizes that there's been an accident or something, because there's a guy in a truck and they're kind of all standing around something. And then he spots that the broom is on the ground, and that this truck had hit and killed Billy.
Yep.
And everybody's standing around. It's like, well, he was just an idiot anyway. It's like,
really callous. It's I think it's the saddest moment in the movie, beyond just the fact that this you know, totally innocent character is killed. It's just the way the town reacts just disgusts me.
Well, it shows that there is no real soul or life in this town.
Yeah.
You know, because they all stand around basically saying it's the kid's fault. If he wasn't so stupid,
right,
wouldn't be. It's like, what's he doing with a broom in the middle of the road? And it's almost like the town just doesn't know who this kid is, even though we, as strangers to this town, know who this kid is.
They kind of don't care who this kid is.
Yeah.
Not that they don't know who he is.
Well, you know what? It's really kind of what Sonny was like at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like that, kind of disconnected, and not really. Well, that's somebody else's problem, not, you know, or whatever. So you know, Sonny like just lays into these people. It's like, well, he was a fucking person who
was sweeping. Damn it!
Yeah,
he was sweeping.
And then they're like, well, a bunch of weird kids in this town.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
that's all the trucker. The trucker makes most of the kind of outsidery, weird statements.
But nobody contradicts him.
No.
Nobody. Nobody.
They kept telling him it wasn't his fault.
It wasn't your fault, pal. It wasn't your fault, pal. Hey, anybody else hungry? I haven't eaten yet. Let's go to the diner.
Yeah.
Like, you just watched a child die.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I've been in an accident that dealt with a pedestrian. You know what I didn't say? I haven't had dinner yet. Let me go get some dinner. And that person was handicapped too.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, motherfucker, I did not eat the rest of the night, and probably for 24 hours after.
Yeah.
I hate these people, but it's unfortunately necessary for showing how, I hate to say how far, because I don't know how far really Sonny has come, but he's assertive here where he hasn't been at all.
Right.
He's protecting something that he loves.
He's become a lion.
He hasn't done at all.
He's become a lion.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
This is his cycle. But the lion also needs to go, decompress, right? He also needs to go when he's not out in the wild. He has to go somewhere, and I don't even know how to say this, but the next scene, right? He goes to see Ruth Popper.
Yep.
Yeah.
In an amazing scene.
Yeah, this is the scene that wins Cloris Leachman her Oscar.
Yeah.
Yes.
He says, "Hey, can I have a cup of coffee with you?" And she's like, "Sure." And he comes in, she starts fixing him a cup, and she starts to shake. And then she just fucking tosses the cup and the coffee pot against the wall, and she's like, "You're the reason why I cry at every little thing." It's almost like she's also kind of letting Coach Popper have it too.
Absolutely.
She's kind of tired of being kind of tread upon.
Put upon, yep.
And so she's like, you don't get to come back here. And, it's like, and basically it's like, you left me for JC, who is just the worst thing on this planet. And you're an asshole, and shut up, basically. And then, he won't even look at her.
Right.
It is such a dressing down that he can't even look at her, and she has to tell him to look at her.
Yeah.
Well, so you say it's a dressing down and he can't even look at her. Half of me thinks he isn't even there. He only wants the comfort, right? He's not even listening to what she's saying to him. I could be wrong, but she obviously needs to get this off her chest, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even think he's being sheepish because of the way she's treating him. I think he's just devastated.
Yeah.
Right? That's my read on it anyway.
Yeah. But he eventually reaches across and kind of holds her hand, and almost you think that she's going to just give it back to him. But no, she kind of lightens up a little bit, and she basically just tells him, it's like, don't worry about it, basically. Never you mind.
Never you mind. Did you notice as they're panning out of that scene that there's a gun?
Yeah.
On the wall, pointing at him? I wonder, with the exception of obviously knowing that there is a sequel, if I did not know that at the time, I would take that to mean that Sonny dies shortly after this. Just because the gun is like directed at him, it's right over his head. It seemed like some kind of statement about life and death.
I chalked that up to Texas, but yeah. Maybe.
I thought the exact same thing. It's like,
could be Texas, but I would expect a rifle, not a handgun.
Well, it was like a decorative gun.
It's like Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Like I think that I don't mean that as a joke. It was like
I know it's exactly right. Yeah.
I kind of chalked it up. It's like, well, it's Texas, and you hang your revolver up there. It's probably not even a real gun. But anyway, I noticed that, and I wondered if that was, but at the same time, it's like, no, I think
you can easily write it off, and if you wanted to, you could examine it a little deeper.
Well, that's what I like about what you bring to the table, Chuck, because you're all about the symbolism, and you dig into stuff like that. So I'm not going to discount that in any way, shape, or form.
Cool.
I would say also that it's, if we want to go with that kind of symbolism, certainly any future that Sonny had is probably dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's probably what's died here.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he is just going to slip into Sam's role, and that's that. I suspect that, if I were to think about this going forward, it's like, well, I would suspect that eventually Sonny will try to reopen the picture show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's fine. Maybe that's who Sonny's meant to be. I don't think that this movie is making any declaration or judgment on that fact. I think it's, again, just observing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's actuated. I don't even know if that's the word. I've said that a lot this time, but I think he's arrived in a way. We talked earlier about how you're always arriving, right? You're never there.
Yeah.
Well, this is his first arrival.
Yeah.
This is the first bus stop, right, on his growth to whoever he's going to be. And eventually he's going to have to leave town again, probably. And I mean that in a figurative, not a literal sense. But he's grown up. in a lot of ways, and he's
probably grown up too fast.
Yeah.
Which probably is not going to help him.
But not fast enough.
But I think a lot of people in this time period grew up too fast.
Yeah, certainly he has lost a lot of innocence, but like you say, Chuck, he's probably not even grown up, but he has lost things that people lose when they become adults.
Yeah. And I don't think that he's necessarily any different than anyone else in this town in their own way. You know, it's just he's the one that we got to see the most of.
Yeah.
Right?
I think in some ways he is more sympathetic than nearly anyone in that town.
Well, part of that is,
and maybe it's because we hung out with him more.
Right. Part of that is how he's framed. You know, we don't see JC in her truly vulnerable moments. We see a little bit of it. We don't see her potentially cry herself to sleep after her encounter with Kluger. We don't really know the lasting impacts of that encounter.
We don't even see how she dealt with leaving Dwayne.
Right. Yeah.
Only from Dwayne's perspective do we really get that she's just come to a cold decision.
We kind of do get that because the next time she brings anything up, she says that Bobby Sheen, got married. So she's already moved past Dwayne, at least at that point, but she is hurt by Bobby, I guess.
Yeah. But we've never actually seen her calculate her plan to leave Dwayne. It's just she's come to that decision, and Dwayne's hearing on the phone, I've got a new boyfriend. Bye. And hang up on him.
Part of me is scared to watch the sequel to this, Texasville, which was made in 1990.
Yeah.
I don't really want to watch it because I like kind of where this movie left things.
Then don't watch it.
Right,
I'm going to say the same thing to you as I say to Star Wars.
But I'm also kind of curious. Like, what did what is his name?
Larry McMurtry.
McMurtry. What did he think? What did he want to do with these characters next? It's not necessarily what Bogdanovich wanted to do with them, but what did McMurtry want to do with them? And
you know why I would consider it, and maybe I'd be more keen on reading both of the books.
Yeah,
is To Kill a Mockingbird is a perfect book, right? It leaves everything exactly where it needs to. And then what turns out, I guess it's a sequel, but it's the first version of To Kill a Mockingbird.
Right. That's a different animal. Yeah.
But it also expands on the universe without killing it for me.
Oh, I think Ghost at a Watchman is brilliant.
So if it's the same thing, I would definitely be interested. Sorry,
I doubt it is. But maybe.
I mean, those characters have to have arrived somewhere with what they've learned and then have some kind of retribution or something. I don't know.
I'm always worried, too, that it's just a cash grab, right?
Yeah, it could very well be that, too.
Did he write Texasville after this movie was popular? I would assume so.
Yeah, he wrote it in the 80s.
Yeah. That feels like Mario Puzo shit to me.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he was he
wrote a lot of books.
No, I'm sure. I know he did, but it could have been like, well, I'm out of ideas. Let's just write a sequel to a really popular, critically acclaimed movie based on one of my novels, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe one day we watch it and we decide if we want to do an episode on it. What do you think?
I'm down with that because this was really good. If that handles themes the way that this one does, which I have no idea, then I'd be totally down to talk about it because this is the kind of movie, like you said earlier, we've hit all of the important points, but you could go on and on about some of these themes.
Yeah. I'm gonna go out and say that I think this is one of our best episodes.
This is top shelf stuff. Yeah.
And not just the movie that we covered, but one of our best episodes.
Well, we'll see about that. I mean, we're pushing 2 hours here.
Can we stick the landing with the closing?
Well, I mean, not yet because I have things to say too. First of all, so just some little notes here. This was not a first time watch for me. There used to be one, I can't remember what it was called, but probably back in 2015, 2016, like the month of February, there was one of the digital channels on one of the bandwidths or whatever. It was a movie channel. And for February, they would play like double features every night that were Oscar movies, basically. And that was where I saw Coming Home for the first time. And this played on there one night, and I watched it there. And it's funny because to this day, even though I've seen this movie, I still think of, for some reason, I still get this and Nashville mixed up. No reason to, other than they take place in the South. But for whatever reason, I think these cast members are in Nashville also, or that the song I'm Easy is from this movie. It's not. It's from Nashville. So anyway, that's
funny that you bring up Nashville because what's his name from The Burbs, which I didn't mention, Henry Gibson. His probably like other most famous role than The Burbs and Blues Brothers was Nashville.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to throw that in there.
Yeah. But I'm always like, I always talk about how, and this is going to be kind of interesting at how this deals with this for the rest of this month, but I've said it before. I'm a very sentimental person, right? And I get, I like to try to keep sentimentality on the side of being sentimental as opposed to getting too nostalgic. I think sometimes nostalgia is a little bit poisoned. That said, I do oftentimes get sentimental for the way things were or the way things would look like as opposed to nowadays. Like, I grew up doing a lot of things in Greenwood, just south of Indianapolis. And I can tell you, it doesn't look the same as it did when I was growing up. And it's like, sometimes I like to drive down some of the roads and it's like, oh yeah, that's where this place used to be or whatever. And I get sentimental for stuff like that. And this movie in particular kind of stands out because it is about a dying town. It's about a place that you're in a few short years, you're never going to go back to. There's going to be nothing there left. And just the thought of something kind of disappearing like that seems almost impossible today. The thought of what are some of these people going to do when this town dies? It's like they're going to survive, but how did they survive? They're fascinating concepts there. But because like there are times where it's like, even like the idea of like, I don't know if you guys remember these sorts of things, but like if you went someplace at like a drugstore or a strip mall or something, do you guys remember like those yellowish like neon lights that used to be over the sidewalk? It's like even stuff like that I get oddly sentimental about, where it's like, because there was something that is associated with something that stuck in my memory when I was like probably 10 years old, going to the Hooks drugstore and getting a comic book and looking up and realizing those aren't white lights. Those are like yellow and gross looking. And it was the same lights that went around the Dairy Queen.
Oh yeah.
We all used to go to, it's like, so I don't know. It's weird stuff like that don't exist anymore. That is fascinating to me. I don't want to go back to stuff like that. I don't think we should be dying to move backwards in that kind of sense, but there is a fascination and there's almost a beautiful but also kind of sad kind of wistfulness to it.
To tie to memory is what it is. It's a feeling. It's a right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
the feeling is stronger and brighter than the actual memory itself.
Yeah, exactly right. Yep.
And then when you take that one step further into nostalgia, where so many people, kind of fall in love with the nostalgia to the point that they can't move forward.
Yeah.
It's like that's where it starts to get poisoned. But you can still feel for all those things that used to be. Like those things still exist, and things still mean something to you.
Yeah.
And this type of movie in particular kind of hits deep because it's like this is a moment in time that is going to be washed away when this town dies, and these couple hundred people or however many people live in this town are going to be stuck with these things that they can, that is going to mean something that much more to them. And unfortunately for a lot of these people, it's going to be a lot of regret.
Yeah.
And I also quite love movies that have this kind of open ending where I don't have to see Texasville. As far as I'm concerned, if I don't ever want to watch that movie, I don't care. I can come up with my own idea of what, of what happens here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I think we've done it, guys.
Yeah, I
Chuck,
think.
do you have anything to add here?
No, I think I added all my addisms.
Cool.
That's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
It is a very good movie.
Yeah, it is. There's lots of anecdotes we can mention, but you can go to the Wikipedia page for that. I recommend anyone interested watch this movie. And
you just recommended somebody watch something.
And follow the rabbit hole to your own heart's content.
Yeah.
Yep.
But next week we have
don't
another.
Don't look up Randy Quaid's pubes though.
No. Oh God, no.
Because it'll just show you his beard. Bring it on, old man.
And now you've come.
He's
full
coming
circle.
for you. Yeah.
Just like the movie.
Shitter's full of Jeffs.
Full. Well, this is no longer the best episode we have.
Oh, it's better now. It's even better.
Yeah. So next week, Chuck, what is it?
Next week we have American Graffiti.
Yeah.
I almost said Happy Days, but no, it's American Graffiti.
It's pretty darn close.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. But we'll talk about that. I think in maybe not so much detail as this because the ideas are a little smaller.
Yeah.
The themes are a little smaller.
I think.
But it's a good movie.
I think what we'll talk mostly about is what this inspires.
Yeah.
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 So, because pretty much the rest of the month is going to be what starts
the American Graffiti Month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, that is on Wednesday, September 8th. So yeah. By the way, we decided this to be back to school month because September is the old school, like when you went back to school, and it's like it's a good time for coming of age type stuff. So
for sure.
So that is next Wednesday. You can find that stuff on filmseizure.com, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Audible. Also on YouTube. Also on all of those same platforms. Also on filmseizure.com. We have Monster Mondays. And this upcoming Monday is Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. I'm finishing out the Heisei period.
Oh, shit.
Well, that's a long movie name.
Yeah, it is.
Or you're finishing out the hike. Okay.
Yeah. God, we're really tanking this episode.
Yeah, sorry.
It was number 1, and now it's like 43rd.
So I'm finishing out that period of Godzilla movies and of Toho monster movies because there are 3 Godzilla movies left to go and Rebirth of Mothra 3. So that will completely and totally close the loop on that era of monster movies. So that should be fun. This upcoming Friday, you can go over to my website, bmovieenema.com. I have the Roberta Findlay 1987 sort of ghost movie, sort of slasher, Blood Sisters. Nah, it's all right.
I thought that movie was made in 2003.
That's a different movie.
Yeah, sorry. If anyone's still listening.
Everybody's already lost. Yeah. So, you can go over to bmovieenema.com. Get that stuff there. I would appreciate it. Also, we are 10 days away from
Never forgetting.
Never forgetting that the season premiere of B Movie Enema, the series, season number 2.
I have not
Centerfold
forgotten.
Girls.
Yeah,
is
that's all.
happening.
Centerfold Girls is first. Nice.
Yep.
Didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, it's that one's an interesting slasher. That's also an exploitation, also a anthology. So that should all be fun. You probably heard more about that last week, and you'll hear a lot more about it next week. Just get over there, go over to YouTube, find B Movie Enema, subscribe to Film Seizure while you're there. And you do that. Cross promotion done. Let's bring it in for a landing. I am Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Chuck Moore.
I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.